I'm focused to try to get better in the abdominal and trying to be at the 100%.
Carlos Alcaraz, the boy wonder and former ATP's world #1, has been a man with ambition for quite a while now. This determination saw him overtake the greats in tennis and become the #1 male player at the end of the 2022 season. The young Spaniard was so good that he became the first player to defeat Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic on the clay court. Throughout the entire 2022 season, the name Carlos Alcaraz has constantly been on fans' lips. He was able to successfully take away the shine that the three current greats of tennis have been showing in the ATP. This was not something every player in the ATP could do, and for doing it at such a young age, Alcaraz became the favorite of so many fans. However, due to his 2022 triumph, many expected him to dominate the first half of the 2023 season, but that hasn't been the case. So what happened to Carlos Alcaraz? Let's find out. Carlos Alcaraz Jr. is the new Spanish sensation that has gotten the whole of Spain all riled up. Born on the 5th of May 2003 in a calm and serene village in Spain known as Alparma in the province of Murcia, Carlos is currently snapping at the heels of fellow Spanish legend Rafael Nadal, giving Spanish fans multiple things to cheer for. Coming from a tennis-oriented family, with his father, Carlos Alcaraz Gonzalez, being a famous tennis player during his days, Carlos showed his interest in tennis at quite a young age. He has already far surpassed his dad's playing career despite still being a teenager, as he had already won a Grand Slam, something his father didn't achieve. Alcaraz began playing tennis at the Real Sociedad Club de Campo de Murcia when he was 4 years old, largely due to the influence of his father, who was at the academy's tennis director at the time. He turned pro in 2018 at the age of 15 by playing various ITF Futures and ATP Challengers events. At age 17, Alcaraz made it to the main draw of the Australian Open, making him the youngest player to participate in a men's single tournament. Since then, his pro career has been on a series of highs and lows, with the lowest point being his successive injuries. One of the biggest threats to a tennis player's career is injuries. Tennis is so physical that these players usually succumb to career-derailing injuries. Ever since his US Open victory in September 2022, Alcaraz has fallen victim to many injury concerns, with the latest seeing him fail to participate in the 2023 Australian Open. For the second time in a row, the Spaniard has missed the Australian Open, which is the first Grand Slam of the season. Alcaraz had to pull out of the tournament merely days before its commencement after succumbing to an injury during his training seasons. The youngster was in a practice match against American Darwin Blanche at their academy when he injured his right leg while trying to recover a short ball. Carlos was in fine shape and form before the competition, and fans had high hopes for him, only for it all to be cut short by the injury. The Spanish youngster then made a post on his social media account saying, "It's time to deal with another blow. When I was at my best in preseason, I picked up an injury through a chance, unnatural movement in training. I'd worked so hard to get to my best level for Australia, but unfortunately, I won't be able to participate in the warm-up or the Australian Open. It's tough, but I have to be optimistic, recover, and look forward." Alcaraz's focus for the 2024 calendar season will be on the Australian Open, as he hopes to win the title for the first time. Alcaraz has also had to end his 2022 season early because of an internal oblique muscle tear in his left abdominal wall. He opted to retire during his second set tiebreak against Holger Rune at the Paris Masters in an attempt to prevent further complications from the injury.
Playing like that with some problems and some things in my mind, is better to retire.
Yet it was ineffective because he missed the ATP Finals and the Davis Cup, his final competitions for the 2022 calendar year. These numerous injury concerns for Carlos Alcaraz beg the question if the US Open curse is real. There is an ongoing phenomenon spreading against tennis fans, which is that of the US Open curse. Currently, there are fears among Carlos Alcaraz fans that the youngster has fallen victim to this curse. As everybody knows, he has had a rough patch since winning the US Open in 2022, suffering from injury after injury, which further solidifies people's belief that the US Open curse is real. The US Open curse is believed to go as far back in history, although to some fans, the US Open curse is nothing but a myth. In 2020, Dominic Thiem won the US Open by defeating Alexander Zverev to become the 2020 US Open champion. The US Open and the ATP Finals are usually the last competition in the calendar season, and fans usually expect much more from the US Open winners at the beginning of the next season. However, this was quite different for Thiem, as he lost the 2020 ATP Finals to Daniil Medvedev, lost his group stage matches in the ATP Cup, exited the Australian Open, and also picked up an injury that kept him out of the 2021 and 2022 seasons. Jump to the 2021 season, where Daniil Medvedev won the US Open by defeating Novak Djokovic, which was not a small feat. He then played in the ATP Finals against Alexander Zverev and the 2022 Australian Open final against Rafael Nadal, which he both lost. At least he did make it to the finals of the Australian Open. Juan Martín del Potro's case looked to have been another one that had started and solidified the US Open curse phenomenon. He won the 2009 US Open, exited the Australian Open in the 4th round the next year and failed to win another match for the rest of the 2010 season before going for wrist surgery. As a result, any claims that Alcaraz is affected by the US Open curse may be put to rest if he can effectively bounce back from his injuries. Carlos lost the top spot in the world rankings to Novak Djokovic as a result of numerous injury issues that caused him to miss many tournaments. The Serb Novak won the 2023 Australian Open, taking his Australian Open titles to 10 and his total Grand Slam victories to 22. But now that Alcaraz is back, everyone is wondering if he will be able to return to his old form. The Spaniard has already started off strong with his victory in Buenos Aires in the 2023 Argentinian Open. He defeated Cameron Norrie 6-3, 7-5 to claim his first title of 2023 and the 7th of his career.
I felt really comfortable playing this final. I know that it was going to be really difficult.
Despite the fact that it is still early in the season, the Spaniard has already suffered a minor setback. The Brit Cameron Norrie, who the Spaniard had defeated in Argentina, returned to end his chances of winning a second championship in 2023 by defeating him at the Rio Open.
So special to win this one, especially I lost a couple of finals already this year, and I had to do it the tough way, you know.
Alcaraz had initially started strong in the game and looked set to cruise to victory, but his fitness issues came into play, which then enabled Norrie to control the game and therefore clinch victory. Despite what we say about his form and numerous injury concerns, Carlos is still part of the oncoming future in tennis. Carlos Alcaraz is not like your everyday player. The youngster gives off a fresh outlook on the tennis sport, similar to that of another youngster, the American Coco Gauff. Because of their similar playing styles and great physicality and pace on the court, one could argue that these two were made of the same stuff. They are both capable of going to the extreme just to save a point. In fact, one could literally get fatigued by watching these two athletes because they are always on their toes, in constant motion and ready to pounce at the right time. Tennis has entered a phase where the careers of all its legends, like Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and others, are coming to an end. The tennis community is definitely in need of a torchbearer who can continue the legacy of these players. As Carlos Alcaraz has repeatedly shown through his strength and tenacity, qualities shared by the 3 greatest tennis players of all time, we are quite confident that he can lead this charge. Carlos Alcaraz accomplished an incredible feat by becoming the ATP World #1 at the end of the 2022 season after debuting at number 32 at the start of the year.
The 2022 ATP era #1, Carlos Alcaraz!
At age 19, he presently holds the record for being the youngest ever world #1 in the men's ATP. Speaking after his victory at the US Open against Casper Ruud, the Spaniard said, "This is something that I dreamed of since I was a kid. To be #1 in the world, to be a champion of a Grand Slam, the 2022 season was definitely one to remember for Carlos."
Well, this is something that I dreamed of since I was a kid, you know, to be #1 in the world.
Following his victory, fellow Spaniard and tennis legend Rafael Nadal tweeted to congratulate him on winning his first Grand Slam and to wish the youngster many more successful seasons. Carlos' ability to dominate men's tennis and shatter all the records set by the 3 greats before him depends entirely on him and his willpower.